Hi, thanks all for coming. I know there's a few familiar faces here. So today we're talking about selling through social, which you're all aware of. One of my previous talks was on social media, but this is more about actually how to make sales or bring in footfall or whatever it is you're trying to achieve through social media. So to start off with, we're going to look at what selling through social looks like and what it involves. Okay, so first of all, the most important question is, what are you selling? So imagine everyone in the room has a very different kind of business. So some of you might be selling products. It might be an e-commerce site. You might be selling them physically in store. Some of you might be looking to sell an idea or might be looking to bring in sponsorship. Or some of you might be looking at selling a business or service, so selling time essentially. So it's really different in terms of what you're actually your approach to selling on social will be in terms of what you're selling in the first place. So you might be selling products, you might be selling time, like I mentioned, so a service. You might be selling events, so you might be wanting to promote events and then sell tickets for the event. You might be selling, this is quite interesting one, you might be selling careers, so recruiters, they're selling careers firstly to potential employees, but also selling the idea of coming on board to the employers as well. And then you might be selling yourself, so some people sell themselves as a brand and then get money through sponsorship. So there's really different ways of selling on social. So where are your sales happening? So this is a really important question as well. So if you're an e-commerce business, chances are you're selling online. So you're going to have some kind of checkout system on your website. Alternatively, you might be a store-based. You might be in a store, so you might be a restaurant chain, or you might be a shop. In which case, the sales are going to happen in person. So that will make a difference as to how you're actually going to direct people from social and where you want them to make the conversion or sale. So importantly, what does your sale funnel look like? So at the moment, you might be only getting leads in from one or two avenues. Social media, the idea of social is that we can increase those avenues two or threefold. So if you're on 3 platforms on social, you're already increasing your awareness by 3 times, and then hopefully you'll end up with more sales at the end. And where are your customers? So this is a really important question. So again, this will depend on what you're selling and who it is you're selling to. But with the social media platforms, I'll just put a few of the main ones up on the screen for the moment. There's a really different demographic on each platform, so it's really important to understand where they all lie online. So this is general information, but if you want to find any information or stats on this, there's loads online. If you want to type in Twitter demographic or Facebook demographic, you'll find lots of information. Twitter is predominantly men at the moment. Twitter tends to engage people that are only on there for a short span of time. So because there's so much content going out on Twitter, it moves really fast. And Instagram, predominantly females. It's also predominantly sort of 15 to 30-year-olds at the moment on Instagram. And it's people that are mainly interested in just browsing and looking at engaging visual content. Pinterest, that's predominantly sort of a middle-aged female market at the moment. Mothers are very heavily involved with Pinterest. So if you're looking at selling children's products or events for children, Pinterest is a really good place to promote that to their parents. And then Facebook's really across the board. A lot of people are on Facebook, but the above 50 demographic are actually growing on Facebook at the moment. And then LinkedIn is primarily business to business. So if you're marketing to other businesses, that's where you want to be promoting heavily. And then the messenger networks are also becoming far more popular for marketing at the moment. So the likes of WhatsApp and Facebook Messenger, they're worth really considering as part of your marketing strategy and selling to people through those. But I'll come on to messaging and chatbots in a little bit. So these are just a few examples of really different kinds of brands and how they sell differently through social. So they're all selling something in their own ways, but what they're selling is extremely different. So first up, Lad Bible. So this is one of the largest social content producers on the planet now. They started up in 2012, I think it was, and they're based in Manchester. And they now have a revenue of £9.2 million. And essentially they make their money by producing and sharing and encouraging users to share content across their platforms. They can then sell on that content to other channels online, and they also use advertising space. So although they're not obviously selling something, they are still selling through social. The Guardian's another interesting one. It comes into the same category, so again, it's content production. Traditionally print media, about 1-2 years ago, they changed their tactics and they focused far more on digital because they were actually, I think in the 3 years previous to last year, they had a loss of no, £7 million, The Guardian did. So they changed their tactic and they focused more on digital market and really hit social media hard. And last year was the first year that they actually turned over a profit. I think it was £800,000 operational profit last year, and that was largely down to their use of social media. For example, on Twitter, they've got multiple accounts. So there's not just one account for The Guardian. They've got The Guardian News, they've got The Guardian Sports, The Guardian Finance. They've segregated every channel so you can really focus on what the user's interested in. But that they're doing a lot on social at the moment, and that's what's actually increased their profits now.
Yeah, you did right. I used to access The Guardian a lot.
On social media?
Yeah.
So they was it in the last couple of years you would have...
Yeah, last year I'd say.
Yeah, so they really changed their tactics just over a year ago.
And they asked for voluntary donations as well.
Yeah,
it's
so
not
that...
subscription.
Yeah, no, it's not. So that they ask for, I think, at the bottom of every article, they ask for £1, and it's highlighted in yellow, but they mainly make their money off sponsorship and user donations and some advertising space, but it's primarily sponsorship and donations. But they've seen a big increase in donations since they went online, because that's where people are, essentially. Total jobs, it's quite interesting, just because, again, like I said earlier, they're a recruiter, so they are still selling, although they're not directly selling a product, but they're still using social to reach out to that market and pull them in. And by doing that, they can then validate why they're charging the employees what they can charge. The likes of Nando's, so any restaurants, independent or chains, or cafe shops, anything like that, you're still selling a meal at the end of the day. You're selling a seat. But you wouldn't be selling anything directly online, but you still want to use social media to increase your footfall in your venue, and that's a good way to sell the end product. So Cancer Research UK, Macmillan Cancer Support, so they're obviously not selling anything, but again, they need donations and they need sponsorship. And in order to get the message out and remind people that are there and remind people that they still need that support, they really use social media to their advantage. So I think I mentioned it in my last talk about the no makeup selfies. I don't remember if anyone remembers those from probably about 7 years ago now, I think. So essentially, if you weren't aware of the campaign, they launched a campaign encouraging people to post a photo online without any makeup. And thousands and thousands of people across the globe did it, and they managed to raise a total of £8 million just from that one campaign, and it was purely driven through social media, and that funded 10 clinical trials, and it cost them nothing to run that campaign as well. Macmillan Support, there was the coffee morning recently. They managed to raise a lot, they do every year, and that's mostly promoted through social media and encouraging companies, individuals, schools, organisations, whoever it might be, to actually promote that on their own channels. So they're generating a lot of buzz around the event and around their brand, but without actually having, again, to spend very much on it. Kim Kardashian, it's a bit of an odd one, but it's a really interesting one up there. This is more, again, on the personal branding side. So Kim Kardashian is now worth $370 million, which is incredible, I think. Whether you like her or hate her, she has built that up from scratch, and that's purely down to her personal branding. Although she now owns businesses and she's involved in multiple businesses, a lot of her income has come from her personal branding, because that's how she's built the other businesses around herself. So I've put us up there just because we're a little bit different again. So we're a business-to-business company. So we still use social media very heavily, but we use it as a channel to engage with users, to keep our customers up to date, to let potential customers know what it is we do, the additional services that we offer. We sell our service and time, so we don't sell anything directly online, but we still need to generate those leads and let people know what it is we're doing. ASOS, so this is the more traditional e-commerce style business, so they sell online primarily. And then Glastonbury Festivals, this is just one example of many, but they're selling the idea of an experience before it's even happened. So they really need to sell tickets, and they need to sell something before they actually got any proof of how it's done. Obviously, they run it year on year, so it's easier for them, but any kind of event that you need to sell that before it's actually happened. And then Lloyds Bank, it's a really different kind of business again, but they need to sell themselves as a brand and make people invest in them and trust in their brand in order to invest their money behind them. Okay, so on to why you should be using social media to sell. So a bit like I mentioned with the sales funnel, you're probably getting in so many customers at the moment from the various channels you're using, but there are so many people on social media that could be potential customers that you're not necessarily hitting at the moment. So user habits have changed over time. So the current sales funnel and the current marketing strategies look very different to how they would have done 10, 20 years ago. But that's because how technology has advanced and how the users have advanced and changed their behaviour. So just a few numbers and stats. So social media consumption on average is 2 hours and 23 minutes per day at the moment, which is a significant amount of time. And if you think that there's that many people browsing on their phones and you could access them during that period of time and let them know about you and your business and the products you want to be selling, it's a huge opportunity that you could be missing. So this is just how it's progressed over the last decade or so. So this is how much time, how much people have increased spending that time on their phone. So in 2012 it was 1 minute 30 a day, 1 hour 30 a day, and that's gone up by nearly an hour to the present date. So in terms of different platforms, currently Facebook and Instagram are the two platforms that people spend most of their time on. They're really easy platforms to browse on and consume content on, but they're closely followed by YouTube and then Snapchat and Twitter. And then this is why people in a survey have stated that they actually spend time on social media, so the main reasons. So interestingly, second up from the bottom is to research or find products to buy online. So I think 31% is actually still quite a good statistic for that people use social media to actively look for purchases. But the fact that there's still 40% of people looking to stay up to date with current news and events and so on above, it means that they're still spending that time online. You don't necessarily have to sell or push something to them, you can sell to them in other ways. Okay, so probably the most important section and the most interesting for all of you is how you actually do it, so how to sell through social. So you know you want to do it, but where do you actually start? So I've broken it down into 3 steps. So the first step should always be research. So if you're going to implement a social selling strategy, the first step should always be to research, like we said, who it is you're selling to, where they are, and also what your competitors are doing. So back onto demographics, so who is it you're selling to? Where are they online? So again, it's looking at the social platforms, which platforms they're using. It might be more than one, in which case have more than one platform, have a presence on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, wherever it is they might be. And when are they online? So that's another interesting one. So quite often we ask people, if we're doing social media for a client, people will always say, well, what's the best time to post? My answer is always trial it for a couple of months and look back at the results to see when people are engaging, because every business is so different. You look online and there are charts to say this is when most people are online, but every demographic is different. So it might be that your customers are online on their lunch breaks or on their commute times. But if they're business to business, they might be browsing in the mornings when they're having their morning coffee after their meeting. So it really depends on what kind of business it is you're running and who it is you're targeting. So it's considering at what points during their days they'll actually have time to browse on their phones or laptops. So if a client comes on board with us for social media or social media advertising, we generally make them or ask them to provide us with a list and an outline of who their demographic would be. So we've got a really good understanding of who it is we're trying to reach out to and target, which means that we can carefully curate our content and anything we push out for that demographic. So that would look at things like age, gender, industry, interests, location, seniority, what the companies they're in, specific companies. So if you've got a golden list of, say, 5 companies you'd really like to hit, education, what kind of education they've had, company size. So a lot of these things are things that you can target very specifically with social media ads as well. So you can reach out to people who work at Boots, who are in a senior level. You can be really specific with who you're targeting. So what are your competitors up to? This one's really interesting. So first of all, where are they? So you might as well save yourself some work. They'll have already figured it out. Where are their customers online? Their customers are probably going to be the same as yours. So then you need to create a platform or a channel, an account on those platforms also. What are they currently doing on those channels? So you can look at the kind of content they're sharing, maybe something that you could replicate in-house. What works for them? So then when you're looking at that content, you can see the ones that have had the most engagement. You might see some and you think, well, either there's negative comments or there's been no kind of engagement, so there's no point replicating that. But if there's something that stands out, that's worked really well, you might as well include that in your strategy and plan for the future. And then, like I said, what doesn't work for them, so don't make note of their mistakes as well. And then, are they running any paid ads? So this one's really interesting, and you can actually spy on this now with other companies. It's only on Facebook you can do this. But I've just got some screenshots up of how you would go about doing this. So this is on Facebook. So if you went to, so I don't know if you've heard of Hi Smile, but they've done incredible on social media over the last 3 years. I'll talk a bit about them in a minute. But if you go to any Facebook page, a business page, you've got this box over on the right. So it's page transparency. So if you click on See More on any page this is, you'll then get greeted with this box, which gives you a little bit of information about when the page was made, when it was created, where the audience lies, and it tells you if they're currently running any adverts. Sometimes it might say nothing's running, in which case you can't see anything. Most cases it will say they are running ads. If you then click on Go to Ad Library, you can then preview any ads that they're currently running, which is just like gold dust really with what we do, because you can look at what someone's running. If it's a company like ASOS or a big competitor, you know that it's going to be tried and tested, so what they're running will be working because they wouldn't be running it otherwise. So then you can look at exactly what kind of content they're putting out, whether they're running any deals or sales or special promotions. You can also see where they're pushing it out. So Facebook also owns Instagram, so you can run it across Instagram, Facebook, Audience Network, and Facebook Messenger now. If you're running ads on Facebook, it's a really good way to get out to a lot of people, and you can be really targeted. So this is Advert Library, so you can also get there via this link here. So you don't have to necessarily go to a page to get there. You can just go to Ads Library and search for any company, and then you can view any ads that they're running. So it's a really interesting place to just go and have a look and get some ideas. So tracking competitors, if you're on Facebook, there's a tab at the top for Insights up here. If you click into Insights, it gives you loads of information and charts and stats on how your page is performing. But down the bottom of, I think it's the first page, which is just an overview, you've got the option to add in competitors to monitor, and then it will track their progress against yours, and that's a free service to use, so it's really worth doing. And again, you can then look at which posts, so you can dig into which posts they've run that work particularly well, so it's a quicker way of finding that out as well. And then tracking them, you can also use third-party software, so I use Sprout Social, but there's the likes of Hootsuite and SEM Rush, and again, you can put competitors in to keep an eye on, and then you can see if they've had a spike in followers or a spike in engagement, and you can look back at that specific date to find out what it was that they did on that date. Maybe they ran a competition or put out a video, but again, you can look at what it is that they're doing that's worked well. So identifying seasonal trends, this can make a big difference in terms of sales. Although you might not see the sales directly on social media, you might see a big spike in sales elsewhere, and it's raising brand awareness of what that is. So hopping on trends is a really good way of generating engagement and relating to your audience. So the likes of Christmas, so any seasonal events, Christmas, Easter, Valentine's Day, Mother's Day, whatever it might be. Christmas is probably the biggest one in terms of selling because people are preparing to buy products for Christmas. So that's one to start now. And then you've got the financial year, so if you're a business-to-business company, it's worth considering the end and the start of a financial year, so when people are planning their budgets for the following year, it's a good time to approach them with an idea or a suggestion maybe prior to that conversation or that meeting that they'll be having. Black Friday, any seasonal sales, so also you've got the Christmas sales or winter sales after Christmas, but Black Friday is a really big one to promote as well. And then also time of the week, if there's purchasing habits in terms of times of the week, so if people are more likely to be dining out on a Saturday night or a Friday night, you want to be promoting the events that you're running on a Friday and Saturday, whereas if you really want to push an event you've got on a Monday, again it's considering when people will be looking for those dates. So deciding on your channels, once you've got all of that information, you can then choose which channels you're going to have a presence on. You then need to create an account and then add the content to the account. And then social commerce setup. So just by a show of hands, is there anyone in the room that actually sells online? So has an e-commerce website? Okay. So social commerce setup, this is really interesting. Over the last 2 years, Instagram and Facebook have enabled you to tag products and actually sell through their platforms, which has made a big difference for e-commerce companies online. So we would call this social commerce. So it's how to actually manually buy through social media. So this is just an example. So now if you say went on Facebook or Instagram and you're looking at a company that's doing this, you'd see a small shopping bag icon in the bottom left of the image, and then you might see a small bubble on the image somewhere. If you hover over the bubble, it will show you the price and a link to the product. All you need to do is click on it, and then it takes you through to a purchase page. You just put in your details, or they're already remembered on your phone, and you can literally do it within 1 or 2 minutes now from social media. So it's really sped up the process of buying online. So there's 2 important questions here to consider. So how many products do you have? So this changes how you'll go about setting this up. So if you only got 5 products, you might want to add those manually. Whereas if you've got hundreds of products, you're going to want to go through an automated system. Number 2, so do you actually have a website, and if so, what is it built in? So if you don't have a website online at the moment in the UK, you can't run this. But if you have got a website that you sell products through, then you can either install a code that will then feed every product through manually to social media. So if you're out of stock, they'll be out of stock on social too, so everything links up. So creating a product catalogue. So if you're going to sell on social, you would need to create a product catalogue. I'll go fairly quickly through this section because I don't think many of you... Is there anyone in the room that would like to create a product catalogue? You would? Okay, I will go over it properly. So first of all, have you got a Facebook page at the moment? Yeah, okay, halfway there. And you also need the personal account, which you already have because you've got it set up. And then you need to set up a business manager account. I don't know if you'd have one of those already. It's a really quick process to do. So essentially you go to business.facebook.com. We'll send this out afterwards so you can follow all the steps. And then you just click on create account. So it creates it from what you've already created. It's just like an extra add-on. And then you would enter a name for your business. Select the primary page, that would just be your business page to connect it to. Enter your name and work email address. Once you've done that, you just need to enter the information in the rest of the required fields. It just sort of takes you through a process. It's really straightforward. It probably takes half an hour maximum. And then every time you log into Facebook, you'll have Business Manager right at the top, which is essentially owns your page and all of the other assets you have associated to your business.
Can you do this for more than one business from your personal?
Yes, so you can. So if you've got 5 businesses, say, you can link them all into one Business Manager account. As a personal account, you can only create a maximum of 2 Business Manager accounts. But generally you can manage multiple pages or businesses through one account. But also having a business manager account, you can add in third parties. So you could add an agency like Blue Frontier. You could add in an individual if it was, say, me or Joe or someone that you wanted to help out. You just got a lot more control and visibility of what's going on with the business as a whole. And you can have all of your adverts running through there. You can have a catalogue with a shop in it. You can link up Instagram accounts. It's essentially how a business like ASOS or Ted Baker or someone, that's how they'll be running their business. It won't just be a page. They'll be using a whole different system. But it's really interesting once you can get your head around it. There's a lot in there that's really helpful. And then you can add in additional users, like I just said. So then actually once you've created the business manager account, you need to create a product catalogue, which is where you add all of your products to sell. So to do that, you go to Catalogue Manager, which you can get through via Business Manager or your Facebook account anyway, but if you want to go there directly, it's facebook.com/products. And then you just click Create Catalogue. You can choose the type of catalogue you want to create. So generally it's e-commerce, that's what most people go for. Otherwise it's travel, property or auto, they're the only other options at the moment. And then actually adding products to the catalogue. So you choose how you want to add to your inventory. So there's the 2 types that I mentioned earlier, the 2 options to do this. So you can upload product info directly. So this is generally the easier way to do it because the second option sometimes needs a developer to help with the crossover. So this is the easier option. The only instance that I would suggest to use this is if you've got hundreds of products or it's unmanageable, so you're always running out of products and you want that to be updated all the time. That's the only time I would suggest that you use this instead.
I have one product which is the e-commerce platform is Shopify.
Okay.
That's still okay to manually upload or?
Yeah, so Shopify is actually quite an easy one to do. So for Shopify, I would suggest that you could maybe do it yourself. So you could do the second one. So if you update something on Shopify, it will automatically update elsewhere. And it also means that if you add a new product to Shopify, that new product will pull through to your catalogue instantly. So in that instance, I would suggest using the second option actually, because in Shopify, you know on the page where you would add the Google Analytics code and search, I think it's in there. That you basically link it up to Facebook, and it's the click of 2 buttons. I think with Shopify, it's made it really easy. It's just a few others where it sort of, for example, Magento. That's a little bit more complicated and might need a developer to add in a widget or something. But with Shopify, I would just do it through that page. So then you select the business that your catalogue belongs to. So that would just be the business that's related to it. Enter the name of your catalogue, click create. And then it's all done, and you can add any more products you want in the future. If you've got an automatic feed set up, you don't need to, it'll just automatically do it. If you've done it manually, you can add them in whenever you want or take them away. So this is where you can find shops. So for example, ASOS, they'll have an additional tab on their page. So you've got shop over here. So that's where you and then if you click on any one of those products, you'll get more information, and if you choose to, you can then go through to the website and buy that product from the direct product page. So it's just simplified the process for the end user, but also the shops themselves, so they're making way more sales because it's simplifying the process for the end user. It's much easier to buy their products. So to manually add a product, you would just select add manually, and then it gives you this field. So you can upload an image or multiple images, you can upload a description, the name of the item, the price, and so on. And then you literally click add product and it's all done. So it is a really quick process to do. So then tagging products on Facebook. So once you've been through that process, you've got your catalogue created, you then say you upload a photo, this is similar with Instagram and Facebook, but this is Facebook specifically. If you upload a photo or a video, you then have an option underneath to tag products. You'll only have that option if you've created a catalogue. And then you would click on the product, it'll come up with a list of products you've added. You just select the one that you want to tag, it might be multiple. And then you start typing the name of the product. So you can either do it by selecting from the list or you can type it in and it'll find it for you. And then you click publish and it's done. So then someone can find your product within the image really quickly. Instagram's really similar. So you have to comply, you have to select that you've complied with their terms first of all. Once you've done that, you also need an Instagram business account, which is really easy to convert within the Instagram app. It's just, again, in the settings, it's a click of a button. And then you need to connect it to a Facebook page. So as I mentioned a moment ago, Instagram's actually owned by Facebook now, so the two often link up. So you need to connect those together. You can do that through Instagram or through Facebook. And then you also need to primarily be selling physical goods in order to qualify to sell through Instagram. And then you also need your Facebook to be connected to your catalogue. So to actually tag, it's the same process. So when you're uploading a photo, like where you've got the option to tag people, you'll also have an additional option then to tag products as well. And then you just choose from your selection of products, tag the product, and then click done and share, and it's all done, and people can buy manually through their phones within a couple of seconds. Okay, so that's how to sell in terms of social commerce, but there are other ways to sell online. So for those of you who aren't necessarily selling directly through social media, there's lots of other things you can consider in terms of how to actually get people either into your venue or into your restaurant to buy a ticket, whatever it might be. So social commerce we've covered. So user-generated content is really key. I'll cover each of these in a little bit more depth in a second. Then strong visuals, recommendations and validation, cross-channel marketing, tutorials, free resources, customer service, influencer marketing. So having a personality for your brand and company as well, that's really important. Events, so that's actually events you can run online, not the physical events you're running, and incentives. So user-generated content, I've got a few examples to go with each of these to help illustrate what it is I'm talking about. So Cupshe, it's a bikini, a swimwear line. They've mainly driven all of their success through social media and primarily through user-generated content. So all of the content, or 90% of the content they share on their own accounts has been sent in by people that love their brand, so brand ambassadors. So that works extremely well for them because A, they're not paying to produce that content themselves, they're saving a lot of time and money. But also it means that they've got a whole community now that are really invested in the brand. So they do that by, at the top of you probably can't read it, but at the top of their account they say, tag Cupshe to be featured on their feed. So people desire to sort of show up on their account, they've got so many followers, etc. So people submit photos all the time and tag them on their accounts with the correct handle, and then they might get a chance of being featured during their feed. They've also got Instagram TV, and that's a lot of user-generated content, so it's sort of when they've won them on holiday, it's highlights from their holiday, but it actually helps sell the products really well as well because people invest in it a bit more because it's not just what the company's pushing out, it's real people's opinions. So user-generated content can be extremely powerful.
It's very clever, isn't it?
It's really clever because
it really involves the customer in the business.
It involves the customers, it makes them invested in the brand, so they're a continuous customer, they want to stay in the brand. It brings their friends and followers in as well. And it validates the service because essentially it's a review in itself, and they're spending not much to run that at all. So it's, in my opinion, that's probably one of the most effective forms of marketing at the moment if you can somehow utilise user-generated content. Competitions is also a really good way to encourage user-generated content. So if you say, send us your photo of you wearing our nail varnish or whatever it might be, or you in our coffee shop, and you might win a free dinner next month or something. It's a really good way to actually incentivise people to submit that type of content as well. So strong visuals, that's also really important. So the likes of social media, Facebook and Instagram in particular, and Pinterest, it's primarily visual content. So if the picture doesn't sell it, then chances are people aren't going to be interested in the end product. Again, it depends on what it is you're selling, what it is you want to put across. It might be, if it's a charity, it might be you want photos of real people, real stories that people can engage with and actually understand. If it's a fashion brand, you're going to want it to pop and wow people. It depends on what it is you're selling, but strong visuals are key. Recommendations and validation. So this is really important in order to get more people invested in your brand. Like I mentioned, user-generated content does help with that. But you've got sites such as TripAdvisor, Checkatrade, Trustpilot, and you've got Facebook reviews and Google reviews. So all of those, although they're not necessarily social media, they all contribute massively in terms of getting people in. So if you've got a restaurant or a coffee shop or something like that, TripAdvisor is a really important way to generate interest, because people often, it's the first thing they do if they're in a new area. They'll Google top coffee shops in Southampton or whatever it might be, and if you're in the top 10, chances are they'll come and visit you. So I would almost rank that as a social media site in that sense. So the review sites are really important, and if multiple ones there are applicable to you, try and stagger where you're encouraging getting the reviews in. So don't just target everything on Facebook reviews, try and balance it across Google reviews, Facebook reviews and Trustpilot. So if someone sees that you've got good reviews everywhere, it's going to enhance your brand. Cross-channel marketing. So if you are on Twitter and Facebook and any other channels, sometimes it's worth mentioning which channels you're on elsewhere to get people to invest in your other channels as well and follow you on the other ones. It's also worth looking at what other kind of accounts you could be on, so the likes of Spotify. If you've, say, got a playlist in your coffee shop, you might want to, say, share your coffee shop playlist, because people might say, oh, I really like that song, and you can go, oh, you can find it on Spotify. And it's not necessarily what people would first think of as social media, but you then get subscribers on Spotify, and they might share your playlist, and it's just another way of sort of connecting with your users. So Casper is they produce mattresses. They've got sleep channels, so they've got playlists for sleeping music to help people soothe people as they go to sleep. But they've actually got quite a lot of subscribers now. People just invested in that. So not that anyone's going to buy directly as a result of that, but when they do come to make that buying decision 5 years down the line when they need a new mattress, Casper might be the one that comes to mind. So tutorials and free resources. So this is really important as well. So most companies have blogs, and in those blogs they give out some free advice, free resources, maybe downloadable documents. And the idea behind that quite often is that someone will get something from that, and they might then trust your brand a little bit more. They know a little bit more about you. So, for example, a really good example is Nigella Lawson, or say Lucy Watson, or people that are involved in cooking in the food industry or baking. So Nigella obviously sells her books, she sells TV shows, but she uses her social media to leverage her following online. So she promotes recipes, she essentially teases you with new recipes that are going to be in her book. It's quite a good tease because it often looks really, really good. And then you end up watching a TV show to try and find out. She'll put a date as to when it's going to be shown, and then people tune in to also find out what that recipe was and how to do it. So customer services. So this is coming back onto the messaging platforms, which is becoming predominant. I think next year this will be more of a predominant marketing channel as well. So AI and chatbots are becoming much bigger at the moment in Facebook Messenger and WhatsApp. So on the left we've got BT. So BT, it's actually really impressive what they've done. So they really heavily, over the last 2 years, they've really heavily focused on moving customer service over to social media. So they've got people dedicated to customer service on social media now. They've managed to cut down, they've cut down by 600,000 calls a year, I think, and that's calls to them, and it saved them ridiculously, it saves them £2 million apparently in terms of moving the customer service over to social media, because it's reducing the number of people that need to answer calls, redirect calls, send it to a different department, whereas on social they can very quickly decide where it needs to go or just nip it in the bud there and then. TechCrunch, so it's just an example, but quite often you've got these AI robots now. So if you message someone on Facebook, it'll greet you with oh hi, I'm Blue Frontier's bot or something. So you know quite quickly, there's no conning you, you know quite quickly what it is, that it's automated. But sometimes you can then sign up to like a news feed by doing that. So you can then leverage Messenger to send people, it's like email marketing, you can then get them to give you permission to send them articles, news on a regular basis. So if you're pushing out blogs or news about your business, once they've accepted that, you can then send it to them however often you want, and you can do it as a mass. So whoever's signed up, you can click send to all. It goes out into their personal inboxes, which they're far more likely to open actually than an email. So it's a really good way to reach out to people personally. And then, so this is Domino's bot. So it's Dom the bot. And they use comedy quite a lot with their bots, so just to make it a little bit more personal, it's not too robot focused. Again, they let you know it's a robot, so they're not trying to trick you, but they throw jokes in, they just make it a little bit more engaging. So you can play around with the bots as well. It's not just sort of an out of the box package. There are different ways to use it. So influencer marketing. So I mentioned High Smile earlier. So they've gone from a $20,000 investment to a $40 million e-commerce business in just the last 3 years. So they sell teeth whitening kits that you can buy at home and do at home. And they've sold these all through social media. They do have an e-commerce site online, but 99% of their sales have come from social originally. And their main strategy has been influencer marketing. So they've paid celebrities to use their product, feature videos on their own feeds and share videos on High Smile's feed as well. The likes of the Kardashians, the Victoria's Secret models, Conor McGregor, they've targeted men and women with this, but it's been hugely successful for them. That's the main reason they've actually gone to that figure at the top. So Greggs, this is one of my favourite brands in terms of marketing probably. So they really, really focus on personality and humour in terms of their brand. So it's really important if you're going to be on social to not look at it just as a business model. You need to really have a personality or some kind of characteristic on social media, because people are on there to chat, they're on there to relax, to spend their time. They don't want to be sold to. If you're selling something, you need to make it informative and friendly. It'll depend on what kind of tone you take in terms of what your business is. For example, we probably wouldn't go too casual as a business-to-business company, but if you're a coffee shop or if you're a retail owner, you might be able to have a bit of fun with the customers. So Greggs do this really well. So they always put out fun, engaging content on their channels. They don't just focus on, we've got new products, this is our new menu, this is what it is. They actually put out jokes and they comment back on other people's things a lot, they engage. And they do a lot of PR stunts as well. PR stunts are primarily, the purpose of them is to be then promoted through social media. So although it's something that's done physically in person, the idea is that it'll be shown on social, it'll go viral, and then that will generate the sales because people either come into your business, they buy something online, or however it might be. So this was their 2018 Christmas campaign. So this is in Newcastle, and Phoenix shop in Newcastle is a really big they have a big grand opening of the Christmas display in the window. So the night they opened, Greggs changed their sign and moved it back to front. So it reflected directly opposite the street into the middle of Phoenix window display, and it generated a lot of articles online, so it's a lot of PR for them, digital PR. There were loads of people taking photos of Greggs rather than Phoenix. People had selfies with Greggs because it was back to front. They got a selfie with the right Greggs sign, and it must have cost them next to nothing to actually do. So in January this year, Greggs launched their vegan sausage roll. It for Veganuary, I think, it was something that happened in January. And they played on the new iPhone that had come out, so they replicated a few adverts to make it look like the new iPhone. There's lots more than just that, but just trying to make it a little bit fun. But they shared it online on social media. Again, this is just kind of by chance, but Piers Morgan happened to tweet them back. I don't know if anyone saw this. It went in the news, I think, as well. But Piers Morgan responded in his usual way, and I think he sort of criticised them for jumping on the vegan bandwagon or whatever it was. And they responded with a witty comeback just to say, I think it was, oh, hi Piers, we've been expecting you, or something along those lines. And their reply to his tweet generated 145,000 likes, and they ended up in multiple articles on digital websites online, on news websites online, which I think it doubled that they saw a 10% increase in sales in those 7 weeks because of the tweet. And they also, their shares doubled during the same period of time as a result of that. So this is another one they've done. So this was prior to the launch of their new menu last year. They redesigned their menu.
You're joking.
I like Greggs, especially that sausages.
Okay, so again, it was more of a PR stunt really, but the idea was that was shared on social a significant amount, and it was all in order to support the launch of their new menu and demonstrate the quality of their food and just the prejudgment of their brand. Okay, so events. If you're running events, you also want to pull in people to your events and increase footfall, sell tickets, etc. You can create events online on Facebook. So you've got a tab on the left-hand side that will say events. You just click into that tab and click create new event. When you've done that, it'll pop up a form. You just need to add photo, add dates, add descriptions, etc. When you click publish, it will then display it within that tab. So you'll have a list of, this goes on and on. This is just the Royal Albert Hall, just as an example. But they constantly update the new events in here, so you can find information about everything they've got going on. And there's also links within there to get tickets, so you can buy directly through there and it'll take you to the purchasing site. You can click into each individual event and find out a lot more. You can also then click going or interested, which then essentially goes into someone's Facebook calendar, which will remind them when the event's coming up. So it's like a personal assistant almost for them. But if you're going to be running an event, I would highly recommend creating an events page within your Facebook account. So incentives, it massively increases sales. Usually we see it with a lot of our clients if they offer incentives or sales. So you might want to offer 30% off with a code, or say a free gift or a flash sale, whatever it might be, especially if it's during a time of the year like Christmas or Black Friday, when you know that the market's going to be heavily saturated. There's going to be a lot of competition online. So you really need to make yourself stand out amongst the crowd. And then paid advertising. So this is a really good way to then get your products or your message out to someone, not just someone, but the exact person you want to get it to. So say, for example, you want to hit a 5-mile radius of Southampton, people that like coffee, you can do that. You can target people who already like coffee shops or interested in coffee in Southampton. You can go off radius, you can go off age. It's slightly different on each channel in terms of the targeting options. LinkedIn's really, really good for business targeting. So you can go, like I mentioned earlier, you can go into, say, target Boots, Superdrug, managers of Boots and Superdrug, or whoever it is you might be looking at. If you own a bridal shop on Facebook, you can target people that are engaged, so they're set to get married in the next couple of years. You can target mothers of 2 to 4-year-olds. It's really specific in terms of who you can reach out to. So the examples I've just mentioned might not be relevant to you, but chances are, if you want to speak to me afterwards, I could describe how you could target the people it is you're looking at reaching, but there will be a way to do that via the paid channels. I've also included Google in there just because Google shopping ads are a really good way to reach them as well. It's not social media technically, but Google shopping ads, PPC, so paid search ads, and display ads are all Google run ads. YouTube is also run through Google because it's owned by Google, but YouTube's a good way to get video content out to your audience. I was also going to mention with advertising, you can also run lead generation ads and direct messaging ads. So lead generation ads you can run on LinkedIn and Facebook, but essentially if a user's scrolling through their feed and they see your ad, again, you need to make the content pop, so it might be a video, it might be Greg's video with a bit of messaging above it, whatever it is. But then when they click on get quote or find out more, whatever it is you've decided to present to them, it generates a form that comes up on their screen, and it's pre-filled with information using their account, so they don't actually have to do much work. So it might have used their first name, second name, email, phone, but then you might decide, actually, I also want to know exactly what it is they're interested in or where they live, or there might be some more information you need to help either validate the lead for you or know how to get back to them. So you can add in predetermined questions just to check off, and they have to fill that in before they submit. Generally, the less you ask them for, the more likely they are to submit the form, but you do have that option. And then when they click submit, you then get those leads through, so you get a name, a number, and a reason, whatever it is you want from them. And then you can just literally give them a call back. They're expecting that call from you. It's a really good way to generate leads as well, rather than just brand awareness. There's lots you can do with social. You can also send adverts out to people's direct inboxes, which is a much more personal approach. So if, for example, you were looking for sponsorship, you might want to target a specific group of people on LinkedIn and send them a direct message from your personal account instead of the business account. So really add a personal touch to it. Generally, we see that generates more engagement and a better response rate because it's coming from a real person. And they can also do research on the person, and you're accountable for whatever it is you've sent. So return on investment, you might be doing all of this, but you want to know if it's working for you and if it's actually worth spending your money on. So you can set up tracking to help validate what you're doing. So in terms of tracking, you can use Google Analytics. This is primarily for if you've actually got a website presence. If you haven't, it probably won't be of interest to you. But you can use Google Analytics to look at traffic source and specifically social media traffic sources. So you can see that 20% of your website traffic has come from social media, and then you can look into that 20% and you can say, okay, well 80% of that was from Facebook, and it was during that week. So what did we do in that week? And let's put more effort on Facebook because that's where the engagement's happening. So it's really interesting actually to go into analytics to see A, if it's working, and B, what's working well or what's not working well. And it really helps then improve on your strategy in the future. So social insights, so you can actually, within most of the social media accounts, there's an insights section or an analytics section that you can then go into. I think I showed a little screenshot of one earlier, but you can dig into engagement, specific posts, so what's worked well, which posts have reached the most people, so that's good at looking at what times of day you're actually getting your content out to people. So it's just worth looking back through all of those, and again, that's a free resource for you, so it's really, really handy to have on hand. Tracking pixels, this is a little bit more complicated to set up, but there are instructions online as to how to do it. So if you're running a paid Facebook advert or a LinkedIn advert, you can generate a string of code, which is the pixel, which you would then install on your website. So if you've got a page on your Shopify website that you would make the sale on, so actually, again, it's really easy with Shopify, so it's quite a quick process. You just copy your pixel from Facebook, install it on the same page, you've got Google Analytics, etc., and then click submit, and it's done. But then essentially, if someone goes from social media to your website, they click purchase, they check out, within the advert it will say you've had one sale from the ad, so you can track exactly how many sales you're getting. Otherwise, because without that, Facebook and your website don't connect, so you don't actually know. You can say, oh, well, I've had this many people see, I've had this many people click through, but beyond that point, you can't track what's going on, so you can't say, oh, it's cost me £10 to run the ad, but I don't know what I've made from that. That's a really good way of sort of validating your spend. Ad results, so the ad results as well, you can find out from that. You can't find out as much from ad results as you can from tracking pixels, but you can look at cost per engagement, cost per page like, and you can work some information out from there. Discount code, so this is a really interesting way to actually do it manually. So if you're running an advert online or you've got a campaign on social media, if you use a specific code, so say October 2019 or whatever it is, only use that on social media. And then if you're running another code for another campaign, use a different code, because you can then say anyone that comes through to your website and uses that code, they must have found me on social, that's how they've come in. So even if you haven't got tracking set up, you know that's where they originated, because they've got that code from somewhere. So that's a cheating way of doing it, basically, which I think is quite effective. And then feedback. So a lot of our customers, they'll say if someone comes into store, they always try and ask them where they first found them. Generally, it's the bigger customers who sort of, a lead might be worth multiple £1,000 to them, but they'll always check where it is they found them, because to them that information is hugely valuable. If they say, well, actually, we saw you on Facebook, but then we searched for you online, because with social media, it's quite often hard to prove what you've done with it, because if people are browsing on social, they're not necessarily ready to buy there and then, because they're at home, they're in their relaxed environment, but they might then the next day say, oh, actually, I'll look at these guys now, and they'll search for you online, so the traffic will have come in organically. But if you actually speak to someone and find out where it is they saw you, did they see you on social media, and they say, oh yeah, well, actually we did a few months ago, you kind of then start to see the journey they've come through with you. And that's everything I was going to cover today, but if anyone's got any questions, please do let me know. I'll be around here for a bit afterwards if you want to come and speak to me directly. But did anyone have any questions they wanted to ask right now? No? Okay, thanks very much for coming. Pardon?
I'll be in contact.
Okay, sounds good. But yeah, Shopify is a good platform to use for connecting everything. Yeah. It's quite straightforward, which is good. But yeah, thanks very much for coming.
Thank you very much.